To Joe's Astrology. This is the astrology birth chart for Kendrick Lamar. And bear with me here because I'm not that familiar with Kendrick Lamar. I don't think I've really listened. I've heard some of the songs occasionally, but I've never listened to his music. More of an old school Tupac, Biggie, Jay Z kind of guy. I do listen to some newer rappers, but occasionally, but just not this guy for some reason. So I'm going to use Wikipedia. I know it's not the best source, but it's good enough for this purpose. Let's see. So we'll start here with this chart. He is a Libra rising. And let's see. So his rising is ruled by Venus. Find Venus here in the 8th. And from what I read a little bit about I read a little bit about him before I started this, just kind of scanned through the Wikipedia. And we see right off the bat that Venus is in Gemini in the 8th, and it's ruler of the chart. And it sounds like this guy's left a pretty big legacy on rap. Like he's one of the, I think some of the things that's in there is like one of the greatest rappers of all time. And I had no idea that he was anything near that large in the rap industry. But here we see Venus in the 8th with the House of Legacies. So he's definitely leaving his legacy uh, with this Venus. And you could even say the Sun is here close too in the 8th. And that's the ruler of his chart. So it's a big part of who he is, leaving that legacy. And we could see with the Sun in Gemini, Venus in Gemini, I can already see by looking at his chart how he would be considered to be in the same breath as like a Tupac or Dr. Dre, because these are all Geminis too. I think Dre was a Gemini, but just that whole era was like so Gemini. And we see him being a lyricist. Uh, some of the things I'll go through Wikipedia. Then it says complimenting his lyrical ability, and I think it said something about when he was younger, an English teacher pointed out that he, at least in his world, he should write because of what she saw in him. And I think there was also like a speech, something about a speech impediment, or see if I can get this right. Okay, excelled. Oh, here it is. Quiet, observant student who excelled academically and had a noticeable stutter. So that could be, something that we could correlate with Gemini. Early in a person's life who has some Gemini uh, in their chart, or something that's Mercury highlighted where they could go through something like a stutter and then turn it around and make become one of the greatest lyricists of all time. Encouraged to be a writer when she heard him correctly use the word audacity. So we see that writing correlating with Gemini, and I don't know exactly if he writes the songs. I think I did read something about him writing, being a songwriter. And we can see, we'll just move here along to Mercury. We see Mercury and Mars making a conjunction, and that is definitely, especially in that phase, being that last phase with Mars ahead of Mercury and it's near the midheaven there, uh, definitely being a lyricist, someone who can use his words very well. That conjunction can be seen as a powerful aspect in astrology. We see that between Mars and Mercury, where Mars is really driving. It's really driving that ability to write and speak and communicate. We could also see, early in, we could look at his early life with it being in Cancer. We could also see that effects in his early life growing up in Compton. I think it said he lived in Section 8 housing, and there's some other things about witnessing some violence, and that could definitely correlate with that Mars and Cancer, like the family, especially it might not be his direct family, but early life, the neighborhood. Even with that Mercury there correlating to the neighborhood, third house neighborhood Mercury, where he's witnessing some violent Mars activity. Even though he did say, which I can appreciate, he said that he enjoyed his childhood. I think it's something we all have to remember, and we can really see that using astrology. That just because a certain, especially on television, television can make things look ugly and make things look bad for whatever their purpose is. But oftentimes the people involved, they don't see it that way. Even though there can be accidents and violence, just there can be accidents and these things in suburban neighborhoods as well. And I'm not taking away from some of the really bad situations that can be out there, um, but I do want to get into this in a future video where and how this can work in some other giving some other opinions about that. So let's move on here. He has Pluto in the first. So very, again, with Pluto being in the first house, a very powerful person. Really, the first house having Pluto in an angle there, and it's in its own sign of Scorpio, and it's retrograde, giving more emphasis on it. We can see that Pluto also making a in conjunct to that Venus almost exactly. See that 8 degrees, 7 degrees, and it's in a Scorpio in conjunct. So if you watch my videos, I've been talking a lot about this. Not too much in depth, but definitely bringing it up. Here's the opposition. Here's the Virgo in conjunct he has a North Node at the Virgo, perfect. North Node at the Virgo in conjunct to that Pluto, and the Venus Scorpio in conjunct. So to me, that really shows him uh, making those adjustments in order to make money off of other people. Get that, to create that legacy, he would have to, in today's world, uh, heavily be involved in other people's money, record sales, etc. And with that North Node, we see that there's some, a lot of self improvement involved to really meet that, to really achieve his life path and really move towards his North Node, his life path, to his purpose. And I think there's another word. This is also considered a yod. I haven't really studied the yod enough because I see a lot of people talking about it. I don't really know if I'm describing the yod correctly from that standpoint. I just maybe just use different language. I call it the Virgo in conjunct and the Scorpio in conjunct. So I apologize if that isn't coming across as a yod, which I'll probably clarify more later on. I'm sure there's more that can be said about the yod. It seems to be very famous. So let's see here. He has a Saturn Mars in conjunct. And again, that's the Scorpio side, so that with Saturn being in there in Sagittarius, we see that Mars, that really this is part of his work and it's conjunct a part of fortune. It's really part of his work to be heavily involved in legacies and 8th house stuff, Scorpio, other people's money, taxes. If you want, you can just go look up 8th house stuff, and you get all the definitions that it could be. I'm not going to get specific with him, unless I see something here. He's got Moon in Pisces, Jupiter on the 7th. Coming back to this Libra rising, he's definitely related to people. Like his relationships have to have been part of his success. So we see that with that Libra rising. That Jupiter on the 7th, like really coming into contact with people that can teach him, mentor him, show him the ropes. Brief stint as a security guard when he started working on music. So we see that Mars, security guard, that Mars emphasis. Saturn Mars would definitely correlate, the Saturn Mars aspect correlate to a security guard. Security guard's definitely some 8th house stuff as well. Police, if you don't know, police is Mars. That's why I correlate security with Mars. See what else we can see here. He's got a Mars Moon. He's got a Mars Moon trine. See here. If you're into like soul astrology, like Pluto's the soul, so he's got a first house or an Aries soul. Whoops. Aries soul plus a Scorpio Pluto. So very more Mars person at a very deep level. Yeah, but more of that like relationship stuff. It looks like he's done a lot of collaborations. I mean, people, if they're professional enough, they might collaborate with you. But I mean, to get a high number of people, I would expect, people aren't going to collaborate with you unless they like you, or they at least respect you. Let's see here. Oh, highlighted here. He struggled with depression, survival's guilt, and suicidal ideation during promotional events upon learning of deaths of 3 close friends. That's more of that Mars, Mars Saturn we see coming into play. Of course, someone who's Pluto in the first house, more 8th house stuff, Pluto stuff, like really having to experience the harsher side of life. The Mars Mercury can definitely give you some transits to go over that are going to give you some experiences of depression. Anyone who's very mercurial, and we see like anyone who's very mercurial, 3rd house stuff could go through some depression as you have maybe a Saturn going over your 3rd house, Saturn, and going over your Mercury and things like that. And some people have, well, I guess you're definitely, everyone's going to go through a Saturn Mercury transit at some point, a couple times in your life, at least. But we also have this Moon in Pisces, and that's definitely going to correlate to the experience of depression, or it could being someone who just empathizes with someone who dies, or just maybe feels it a little bit more deeply than somebody else. And you could even say that like here, learning of the deaths of 3 close friends, I don't know if that occurred like at the same time. That would be like that heaviness that a Moon in Pisces person would go through, or could go through. It also says down here that he's took some time off, and that's definitely going to correlate with this Pisces, where the person, certainly at some point in his life, he's going to want to step into that Pisces energy, 12th house energy, where it's like, okay, I'm going to step back from all of this stuff that I'm doing. And Pisces with the Pisces Moon, the creativity, the musical ability, you can see it's in the 5th house of performances and putting yourself out there as someone who attracts attention. And someone who does that with a Pisces Moon, you're definitely gonna have an experience in the life where it's like, whoa, I've done maybe too much, and I'm starting to feel the effects, especially as he gets older. You see, he has a Neptune. Is Neptune in the third house? That third house is that house of Mercury, the house of the conscious mind. So probably has a good imagination. You can see the musical ability is very much on his mind. It's very much in his mind. If we saw like like on my chart, I have Aries ruling the third house. So when I was young, especially when I was younger, I was very much involved in sports competition, athleticism, challenging people. This was very much top of mind uh, in my life. It looks like he has in this chart he has Sagittarius in the third house. So we see like that Jupiter Mercury, which I've seen in other charts of very successful people. Um, but just having the combination there of like it's also really expanding that Neptune influence, that imagination. It's really expanding that to his conscious mind. And the conscious mind is actually, the third house is opposite the ninth house, and it's square the 12th house. So this is like counter, it's kind of counter to what Mercury likes to do, which which you could say with someone like him, if he finds the right, or if you have this too, like if you find the right avenue and you're able to be musical and creative, it really will create a genius. It's probably not someone who's going to be able to function in the day-to-day world, the day-to-day Saturnian world that most people live in. Someone like this will have trouble. Uh, will have trouble living in that world, which good for him to get out of it. And you don't necessarily have to go that to be that successful to get out of it, but he definitely has. There's a couple other things. Not really getting into the astrology as like a cohesive chart here, just kind of picking out pieces. Now I'm looking at the chart more. He does have the south node in the 12th, the north node in the 6th, and often you do see that as well with that south node of the moon in the 12th, coming back to that Pisces moon, where there is a need to retreat. You see the 6th house being the work, where you can see Jupiter in his 6th. It's moving away from that north node, where maybe you could see the person would have put a lot of emphasis on that work, uh, the learning, the relationships, and definitely the need to backtrack and go into his personal space, be a loner, be by yourself for a while, away from people so you can kind of recharge. We see that Mercury is squaring those nodes. And looks like there could be some indication that when he is going into this space to recharge, I believe it said like he just recently did this. He's probably doing some Virgo 6th house stuff where he's resolving this node here and kind of resolving this Mars. And I'm not going to get into what he's rethinking or thinking about resolving in his life. People who are fans of his might be able to speak on that and can leave some comments if you've made it this far to this long, probably the longest chart reading I've done so far. I'm not sure if there's really anything else. But yeah, if you like to leave comments on this, please do. Everyone would love to hear your thoughts, I'm sure. I know I would. I've been doing a lot of talking on here, not that much interaction, but definitely some interaction here and there. Influences. Lamar to Tupac on 19th anniversary of his death. I was 8 years old when I first saw you. I couldn't describe how I felt at that moment. So many emotions, full of excitement, full of joy and eagerness. 20 years later, I understand exactly what the feeling was, inspired. The people that you touched on the small intersection changed lives forever. I told myself I wanted to be a voice for man one day. Whoever knew I was speaking out loud for you to listen. Yeah, and this is what I'm going to do a video on sooner than later. That's all fine that he was inspired, and there's maybe some things in the chart you can see being inspired. I mean, that's definitely that Neptune in the third. That's Neptune's inspiration. He has inspiration on his mind. He's attributing it to Tupac. He's definitely gonna find people that are gonna inspire him. They're out there, whether it's Tupac or anybody else. And I just want to say that um, you can be a musician. You can definitely take your personal time, find time to be a musician. You don't have to be famous, and you can still get satisfaction from it, as I'm sure this man would attest to, especially as he gets older, that you don't need to be famous. So, uh, anyone out there, if you're, a question is a question with people. Many people? It's like, okay, are you trying to be famous, or are you doing what you love to create that awesome feeling of being inspired? Because there is a difference. And we could say about Tupac that with this chart, you'll often see, like with Tupac, you can see he had Scorpio. I think he had Jupiter in Scorpio, maybe something else. His Sun in Gemini, Moon in Aries, I believe, in Moon in Aries. So this is a guy who has a strong Mars, strong Gemini, strong Scorpio, eighth house, Pluto, and strong work ethic with that North Node in the sixth. So these are all characteristics of Tupac, and you will see in astrology that you will be attracted to people who have similar astrology to you. Many of the readings I do are people who have similar astrology to me. The greatest and most important rapper of his generation. Okay, I think I will leave it there for now, but definitely didn't expect to go this long. I'm glad that someone recommended this because this was very, very cool. I'm gonna have to check out his music for sure. So, um, yeah, if you made it this far, please subscribe to the channel for more. Comment, like, and I hope you have a great day.